Welcome to the Jones Zone, a podcast by Darryl and JJ Jones.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Jones Zone. Today, we've got Jason Hoppy. He's with the Rooter Company. He works in the plumbing industry. And I tell you, we've got new regulations in California. I wanted to go over with him, and along with just, typical problems that homeowners have with plumbing. I think this podcast being about houses, what the heck? This is be a good guest. So, Jason, thank you for joining us here on the Jones Zone. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
What are the most common plumbing problems? I just had when we closed escrow on Friday, and then she's going to be moving into another house on Monday. We're closing that escrow. And by golly, over the weekend, I think it was the refrigerator of that house had some sort of water leak, and there was no one there. There was just a few inches of water on the whole bottom of the floor. And it ruined. They got to replace cabinets, drywall, all the flooring, the vanities in the bathrooms. And this has never happened to me in 35 years of selling real estate. It was crazy. He had called his insurance company, and they got him over there, and they're drying it out and everything. Tell us, what are the most serious or common, I should say, plumbing leaks that are causing havoc in our lives this day and age?
It usually starts with the sewer. The piping is old. It's original for the most part on most homes. Being here in Orange County, homes are now pushing 30, 40, 50, 60, even more years old. And either they've never had their sewer looked at, replaced, repaired, maintenanced. Typically with plumbing, we see that people only look for plumbers when there's an emergency. The preventative maintenance is something that people kind of overlook. And that's typically what we see. Clogged toilets, clogged sinks, showers. And then all of a sudden now more problems come because the plumbing itself has never been maintained whatsoever.
Well, so sewer backup. So the main line, as they say.
Correct.
And it's funny, main lines, they have a pretty varied lifespan. Is that fair to say? Meaning they could last for 100 years. Well, maybe not 100 years, or it could, I guess, last 100 years. It's just based on use. Is that fair to say? Or
use, but also the fact is earlier, let's just say probably 40 plus years and back 40, 50, 60 years and even farther, they would use either cast iron or what they call Orangeburg. Orangeburg is more of a clay situation. So you can imagine clay in the sewer, which is moist, in the soil, which is moist, deteriorates. Cast iron, because it is what it is, it rusts out. And so there's always water there, and vegetation, in this case, trees, roots, and things of that nature look for water. They seep right into the piping, and now they overtake the piping, break it, crack it. And now you have an actual blockage where it's nothing you can see until you actually stick a camera down there.
Wow. What's the preferred, is there any new technology for main sewer lines that something that they use now? What are they using nowadays?
There's a few things they can do in terms of preventative maintenance. First one is what they call hydrojet. It's a high pressure nozzle up to about 4,000 PSI, and it spins. And so it spins and actually blasts everything to the street sewer, right? The city sewer. Also, once that's cleared, we stick the camera in to see where the line is at, how good the main line is. If necessary, it's in good condition, then we can do what they call liner or pipe coat, one of the two. So basically a liner is, if you think of like a fireman hose, right? And you blast it through the sewer, you stick a balloon in it, has resin around it, basically glue, and you fill it up, and it adheres to the lining of the actual pipe, the original pipe. And what that does is it prevents it so no roots penetrate that anymore because it's completely sealed.
Wow, that seems like a pretty good remedy. So that's something is that kind of the first option? I mean, I'm guessing that replacing a sewer line is rather expensive, quite laborious.
It is. Correct. Expensive and laborious. Very, very well said.
Okay. So that would be and there are times when that can't be used, I'm guessing, or can always typically be an option?
Not necessarily. So if the condition of the line for the cast iron, let's just say, is what they call offset or completely off, right? And we need to go in there and dig, then unfortunately we have to go down. We dig, we pull out, we replace. Sometimes they do what they call a spot repair. So it's not the full line, it's just a certain portion of it. Other times we need to replace the full line and help the customer out. If it's replaced the full line, they can do what they call either pipe coating and or liner. It's up to the customer, but once you've replaced it, it's good to go. Again, typically is around 15 to 30 years is a pretty fair average to say. But like you mentioned earlier, it depends on usage.
Is there a general rule where the main line is public sewer? I mean, is it pretty obvious when you go down there where there's just a main line and then once it connects to the public sewer, I'm guessing at the street? Is that fair to say typically?
Yes, that's correct. So that's where, if you want to call the cutoff is. So from the home to the actual street, the connecting portion of the city sewer, that's where the homeowner is responsible for. You'll see that you're typically even under sidewalks, the other front section of the grass past the sidewalk. So that's usually where the homeowner is responsible. Once it's in the street, that's actually the city, and the city maintains that.
All right. Now you mentioned earlier about preventative maintenance. Excuse me. Let's go over that. How often and what exactly should someone do for their house for preventative maintenance to hopefully not have these emergencies?
Exactly. I recommend every 6 months. 6 months first would be a camera inspection. Just stick the camera down. They use what we access the sewer through what they call the clean out. Homes built within the last 25 years, actually I think 23 if I'm not mistaken, are required to have a clean out in the front yard basically. And that's the access point. So you'll see sometimes in the ground where it has like a little screw and a cap on it. We just open that up, stick the camera down, and we can see what's going on, either what they call upstream or downstream. So upstream towards the home, downstream towards the street. And that allows us to view what's going on. You can see where if there's cracks, there's breaks, there's root intrusion, there's all these different things that could be happening. And sometimes the line is clean, sometimes it's not. So that's one. I would recommend at least every 6 months for that. Hydrojet, I would recommend at least once a year, but that depends on what we see from the camera. If the camera indicates that there's something else down there, we need to hydrojet and clear that line maybe every 3 to 6 months. But
Now, if
six
someone
months
doesn't have a clean out, is that something you guys commonly install?
daily.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because it wasn't code prior to basically 2000 and basically the year 2000. So anything further back from that wasn't necessarily a code situation. And so now we do it. RU hours recommended as well. So it's up to code, especially for new builds.
Now you do full on plumbing for the entire house, not just the main line, sewage.
That's correct. So we do toilets, sinks, showers, baths, water heaters, whole house filtration, repipes. We do everything in terms of plumbing. The only thing we don't do is we do not install fixtures or appliances. So we don't install a stove. We don't install a dishwasher. We do work on the line from the dishwasher to the actual, like the sink, basically.
What are the other comps? So you've got sewer lines. That's a big cause of plumbing issues and stuff. I mentioned how that client of mine had a refrigerator problem. What are some of the other more common leaks that people are suffering from these days? Is it just a pipe leak, a faucet leak? I don't know. You tell me.
Old toilets. So toilets that are old, they have the wax ring, and sometimes that just goes bad. Most people call them a shut-off valve, which is right behind the toilet that connects to the water. That's what they call the supply line, and it's what's connected to it is called the angle stop, and those go bad occasionally. Some people, when they replace toilets or they replace the guts of the toilets, they don't replace the supply line and the angle stop. I've personally had experiences in my life. I didn't do it, but where the guts of the toilet, right, the fill valve and all those things were replaced in the back, but the supply line was not, the angle stop was not, and it flooded the location where they replaced that.
Man,
so good learning experience. I didn't do it, but it was a good learning experience. So knowing that once you pull a toilet, it's called pull and reset. So if you take it off and you have to do it, you replace the wax ring, you replace the supply line, you replace the angle stop. It's just preventative maintenance, right? It's like when you go fix your car, you replace the radiator, but you don't replace the radiator hose. You might as well do it. You're doing both. Like, just, you're there, do it. You don't want to have issues down the road because you did one thing, but you didn't do the second.
Right. No, that makes sense. And what other items should people be looking at on an annual basis in their
water heaters? Recommend at least once a year they flush the water heater. Because we live in California, especially in Southern California, they have lots of chemicals in the water, and that does create like calcium buildup. You have sediment, is what they call it. And if it's not flushed or cleaned, just kind of circulated, right, or cycled, if they don't get that out, it sits there and now it builds up. So that damages your water heater. It doesn't produce, the correct amount of heat. It doesn't flow, like you don't receive enough pressure in your home.
Now, is that something that a person can do on their own, or do they need a plumber to do that? How does that part work?
I would recommend a plumber, and not because I work here, but because of the fact is if you don't quite know what you're doing, you're going to look at YouTube and do it. There are things that you can do that would cause more problems down the road, especially with water heaters. People don't know exactly how to run. It's most water heaters are obviously your gas. You have the tankless water heaters, which are different. But if you're working with gas and things of that nature, you want to make sure that you have a professional taking care of that first to protect yourself and your home. And then in case if there's an issue, the company's responsible.
Now, what about tankless water heaters? Those obviously there's no tank, but what kind of maintenance is required, or is there any requirement on tankless water heaters?
Very good question. Yes, there is. Same thing. We recommend again once a year to flush the tankless water heaters. It's a little bit different because obviously you're not seeing a 40 or 50 gallon, tank sitting in your garage. This one's located on the wall or sorts. What that does is they have a system. It's usually called a recirculating system, and that produces the constant heat of water. So it continuously moves the water within the system to keep it hot. Your tanked water heater, so in this case, your standard water heater, obviously that water has to go from the tank to where you're at, the shower, the faucet, whatever. So it takes a little bit more of a travel. Your tankless is more of a constant, always hot water, and that's kind of the difference. It is obviously not as big, shall we say, so it's space saver, which is kind of cool. There's no gas to it, so it's also nice that way. The problem with the tanked water heaters is they do run gas. So if the temperature in the water heater goes down, the gas turns on, heats it up. If you don't use the water in the water heater, the temperature consistently fluctuates. So you're using gas constantly, whether you're or not using the water heater. Tankless doesn't require that, which is kind of cool because it always continues to move the water, so it's always hot.
That makes sense. So I want to come back to other maintenance projects people should do on an annual basis, but I just recalled my buddy Walt was telling me that Insurance State Farm is now has this. It's approximately $400 or $500 thing that goes on their plumbing that will detect a leak immediately. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, it's usually by the company called Moen.
Tell us more about that.
Yep. So Moen Flow leak detection.
Moen, what's it called?
Moen. So it's the brand Moen. Moen.
Oh, okay.
And then it's FLO. So Moen Flow leak detection.
So this leak detection that State Farm, I think it's State Farm or Farmers, get those two confused. Yeah, I think it does require that. In fact, we'll get on that topic as well. But tell us more about that. So it detects the leak. So it's kind of a big deal, it sounds like.
Most of the homeowners insurance now are requiring this in order for the people to continue with their homeowners insurance policy. So it's becoming statewide. And obviously we kind of know about the situation with the insurance in California, so it's a little bit different. But with that being said, yes, it's something that's going to be required here on out because sometimes you have a leak that you don't know about and it might be just, what they call a pinhole leak you don't know about. And it's just little by little by little. So it definitely protects that, prevents it, shuts off the system so that you now have a situation where you're aware of the leak and now you can have it detected. Now that's where
they shoot you a text. It's set up to where you'll get a text.
Yeah, it's actually done through Bluetooth, if I'm not mistaken. So they do text and things like that. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, that sounds like pretty cool. Yeah, it's interesting because you mentioned pinhole leaks. I mean, that especially when people are the vacant house. So whenever we have a wash machine removed or a refrigerator removed, we typically will advise our clients, unless we forget. We advise them to put a bucket there and pinch I think to pinch it, or there's something you can put on the wire, because sometimes you get just a little drip, 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 but then all of a sudden 5 days of dripping, you got yourself a big problem. So that's an issue too. So what other maintenance things should one go? You got the water heater you mentioned. Is there anything? And you mentioned the toilet, the sewer line. What else is something that would be good for a homeowner to look at on an annual basis? Or
they do offer what they call the PRV, which is a pressure reducing valve. So sometimes when you have high pressure that's going through your water system, it can burst your pipes. So what that does is it relieves the pressure, so there's not quite so much going through your pipes all the time. It's kind of it's not so basic, but it's a very simple way to protect it. And sometimes there's too much pressure buildup due to pipes that are failing, due to either moisture, heat, excessive cold. Like it just depends on where you live and what's going on.
And that's something that one could do to extend the life of their plumbing. Is that fair to say? Not have super high water pressure?
Correct.
Okay.
Because the more pressure you have going through the system, obviously your piping typically is either what they call PEX, P-E-X, or copper in terms of your water lines, right? So either of those two. The more pressure that goes through them, obviously it has to expand, contract over years. It's going to eventually give out. So if you have these types of things like the PRV, the pressure reducing valve, that helps so that you don't have to have so much pressure running through your system, and it elongates that the lifespan of it.
Okay, on that note, copper used to be the gold standard. Everybody'd say copper plumbing, but I've heard of I don't know if it's the way that the water's being treated in California or what's causing it, and maybe I'm incorrect, but maybe you can tell me. Is copper is not? Is it still the gold standard, or is this PEX? Tell us how to spell that. PEX?
PEX.
PEX. Yeah. Okay. PEX. Yeah. Is that kind of the new gold standard, or it is? And tell us why it's the new gold.
Yeah, PEX is actually approved and required in 49 of the 50 states. And California was the last one to join.
Say again, who's the last one?
California.
Oh, really? So what makes it so special?
So it's actually a crossed-link polyethylene material, which is kind of cool. So it's actually expands and contracts nicely. If it kinks, right? So if you actually have it stored or you're using it, and it kinks, you can heat it up and it goes back to its original shape and form. It's really very interesting. That's malleable.
So if someone was going to repipe their house, let's say they had galvanized, and then you would talk to them about whether you want to go copper or PEX, and probably recommend PEX. Is there a big price difference between those two?
PEX is actually a little more, not so economical, but not quite as expensive as copper for the most part.
Really?
And they have different types of PEX. So there's PEX A, PEX B, and PEX B is actually the most economical version of it.
Well, now
there's nice.
Is that now copper? This is something that I found out, a while back, is even with copper, there's different grades of copper, meaning it's basically the thickness of the pipe. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. And you want a thicker pipe to last longer.
Typically, yes.
Okay. So I guess it seems to me though, why would anybody go with anything other than PEX nowadays?
I agree. It's kind of a game changer. It's easier to do in terms of just plumbing itself, but it tends to last quite as long as, if not better than copper. Obviously, copper has its chemical compositions, whereas PEX is easier to work with. It's better to store as well in terms of storage, right? And then, of course, obviously, it's just within your walls. So there's few regulations with PEX. There's actually a whole list of them that we have to do in order to make sure it's working. Certain things that they can't touch, certain tapes, glues, if there's any, shouldn't be any caustics, but anything in terms of the wall insulation, no markings on it. So it's a very clean install, which is really nice.
Any reason why California was so late on accepting PEX, or required? Is it required, or it's accepting PEX?
It's accepted now. It's not required yet. It will eventually probably become required here soon. I don't know how soon, but possibly. We don't have quite that answer in terms of them being so late to the game, but I think they just wanted to hold out because it's just the way it was ever since they started plumbing. So copper was the way to go, and every other state was like, oh no, we're doing PEX. And I think it's just a better way to go. So
any other materials, it's basically still copper PEX.
Correct.
Okay. Edit
for water lines, yes.
What's that?
For water lines, yes. So that's the water going to your home. Easiest way to remember it is going to your home is your water lines. Leaving your home is sewer.
Okay. So
that's how I learned it.
Would you do sewer lines? Let's say the leaving the house. Would that need to be PEX, or does it matter?
PVC.
PVC. Okay.
Correct. So and those are the ones. So with PVC, it's different because it's not going to rust away in terms of the ground, because the ground's always moist, cold. And then we can also line the PVC as well. So that way it's sealed completely and it just solidifies your sewer for many years.
And you may not know this, but why wouldn't they use PEX for the water coming into the house? I mean, excuse me, not PEX. Why would they not use PVC for the water coming into the house?
It's because it's specific to actually ground, like certain chemicals in the ground. If it touches, it deteriorates.
Okay.
So PEX A only has a 30-day life shelf if you leave it out in the sun for UV rays. PEX B is 6 months. So if you just stick it outside and it's in the sun, PEX A only lasts for 30 days and then it's done. PEX B is 6 months in terms of just the chemical compositions of the lines.
Wow. So PEX it can't be exposed to the sun.
Correct. So if you're digging and stuff and you're putting PEX in the ground, it deteriorates eventually just due to the chemicals, the moisture, all that stuff. So, like I said, like even when we're doing commercial buildings, the PEX has to be a certain distance away from the metal, like studs, shall we say? Because if it's too close to the metal and the metal composition, whatever that may be, might touch it, it could deteriorate the PEX faster than what it's supposed to.
Oh, interesting.
So it's very, I guess, finicky or picky, if you want to call it that. But it's amazing for water once it's in your house.
All right, that makes sense. So what has California done? We were talking about the state being late on PEX. What new regulations or codes? I know we went to those darn low flow toilets and low flow shower heads, et cetera. Anything new that's come across the last couple of years?
The one that we mentioned just earlier was the pressure reducing valve that's coming now, where the homeowners associate or homeowners insurance are requiring that, especially in California. It's just to make sure that we're not having too much pressure through our water lines and explode those or have leaks, which obviously creates an issue. They're trying to prevent that so that the insurance company are not involved in emergencies.
The flow toilets. Tell us about that. Even though it's been a few years since we've got that. What they do? They reduce the amount of water that's in the toilets.
And also pressure. So what that does is there's less pressure going through your sewer, which doesn't expand so much in the sewer line, causing a break or a crack or a fracture in the line. The water conservation fixtures that they now recommend is just to have less pressure, like I mentioned earlier, and also to regulate the flow of the amount of water that we're using with any type of sewer going out of the house.
Now, does the low flow, do these regulations affect the plumbing performance at all? I mean, I know, no, it's like you get to flush twice now instead of once, or
I haven't seen it, but it depends on the pressure.
Depends what you ate the night before.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I went there. Sorry.
Depends how good the buffet was.
All right. Edit. Are there any specific laws around sewer line responsibility in California, like who's responsible if it breaks in the yard? I guess we kind of talked about that, huh?
We did a little bit earlier. Yeah, I can go over it again if you'd like.
Yeah, I don't think so. Preventative maintenance and upgrades. I guess I delved into that first. Sorry, I skipped around my notes that I sent to you.
No worries.
Tankless water heater. Oh, okay. Talked about that already. The rising energy costs, plumbing upgrades, help homeowners save money and heating bills. Did we kind of already cover that?
A little bit, yeah.
Question 12. What's your opinion on whole house water filtration device? Oh, can you talk to that?
Of course.
Okay. So tell me, you mentioned earlier about whole house water filtration devices. Tell me I don't know, do you have a recommendation on soft water filtration? What is your take on that?
I think it's great. The reason why is because it's better water, which actually it means better health for you and your family. Obviously, the better water you consume, the better it is. There's a lot of chemicals in our water, especially here in Orange County. And due to that, I do recommend whole house filtration. One of the ones we use is what they call Halo 5. It tends to be the best system on the market right now. It's pretty common in a lot of houses because they're seeing the benefits of it. There's a web page that we do look at. It's called, I'll spell it out, is ewg.org/tap water. And once you go to that web page, you can type in your zip code and you can see all the chemicals in the water in your particular city. And it can see how good or bad it is. And you can compare it with other cities local to you.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I just got back from Utah and I actually commented on the waiter. I said, yeah, more water? I said, your water is the best water. And he goes, yeah, we get that all the time. Utah's water apparently is really good. I know here in Orange County, I don't drink tap water anymore. Heck, as a kid, I used to drink it out of the hose. It was no problem. But so the water's kind of changed, right?
There's a lot of chemicals in it. There's more than you would know and stuff you can't pronounce. I looked at it when I first started plumbing and I'm like, whoa, that's interesting.
Wow. So, say that website again. That's great advice.
E as in Edward, W as in white, G as in Gary, .org/tap water.
And you could put your zip code in there, city, and then it tells you what's, I know that when we had kids, my wife had ours checked. I forget how exactly. And they suggested that we didn't let them drink the drinking water. They said, yeah, you guys can drink it. You'll probably be okay, but I wouldn't give it to your kids. So that wasn't exactly a comforting thing. So, and now what about soft water? So you got that filtration device. What other, talk to me like a 5-year-old. What other filtration devices that are good for households? I mean, soft water. Talk to us about soft water devices. The salt, where they add the salt in, that stuff.
Salt water is good. The water softener is good. Obviously, that prevents like the calcium deposits you see possibly in your shower heads, the faucets, anything in the bathroom. And what that does is obviously prevents. It's basically built for your fixtures, so they last longer. They don't get clogged up. And that's the purpose of soft water. It's deionized, is what it looks like. So when that comes through, it's not hard. It's not sedimentary.
Okay, now that's not a replacement for a water filtration device. Those are two separate things.
You can do two separate, yeah. But if you have the water filtration system, like let's go back to the Halo 5, you're sitting in a good position where you're relieving yourself of all those contaminants that are coming through your water. So they stop at the actual filtration system instead of going through. So I've found that the Halo 5 system tends to do better than having both. You just really only need one.
Okay, now what's the annual maintenance on this Halo 5 thing? I mean, is it something that the filter has to be changed twice a year, or tell us more about that? It's just a one and done? You're done?
Pretty much. It's a very nice system. It's expensive, but it's worth it. And the reason why is because it's built to do specifically that. It's time to get, it's built to keep all of your contaminants out. I recommend flushing it. I would say every 3 to 5 years. It's kind of far down the road, but just to keep an eye on it. Halo 5 itself has said that there's never been an issue with their systems with regards to the sediment. And I mean, so for example, if you think back to a water heater where you have possibly a knocking or different types of like sediment, rocks kind of sitting around there somewhere, this is what it's built for. So that doesn't go through all of your fixtures, water heater, faucet, shower heads.
3 to 5 years. Wow.
Mhm.
And this turns, let's say, okay, so if I describe Orange County drinking water as not drink worthy, this system would cause it to be drink worthy.
For sure. And you can taste the difference.
Interesting. And what, I don't know if you want to quote a price now. I'm sure it'll vary dramatically, but can you quote a price on approximately what that would cost for, let's say, a typical 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2,000 square foot home?
Your typical Halo 5 starting price would be about $2,500. So start. The reason why I say it's typical or starting is it depends, like you said, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath type deal. It depends on the piping and the things of that nature that need to be replaced.
No, is there any retrofitting that's required? I mean, for example, can you hook it up to copper plumbing, or does it have to be PEX? Or
You can. But my suggestion is once we're there, if you're going to do it right, I would do it right the whole time. Because if you use the existing system, the existing copper, it possibly has buildup, has calcium, it has the sediment. There's something in there that's already passed the filter.
So what do you mean by that? You mean does that mean is that a flushing out of the system, or does that replacing all the pipes?
I would replace it myself personally. Having experienced what I've experienced, I would, yes.
So a full copper or a full pipe replacement. Now that gets a little costly.
Correct, it does. But it's almost a one and done. You don't have to do it again. It's not something you can need to replace every 2, 3, 4, 5 years because you're doing it right with the actual Halo 5 system that maintains your lines and your fixtures all the way down to the farthest fixture, bathroom, sink, or toilet.
What's it cost these days to replace? And again, I know you ballparking it. You said $2,500 to start with the Halo system to repipe a house with the PEX. Same house. Let's take a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2,000 square foot house. You got it at a ballpark price?
You're going to see probably about $5,000 to $6,000 of starting.
Okay. And then twice as big, twice as much?
Possibly so, yeah.
Okay.
We're really good in terms of just kind of touch base on prices for our company. We're very competitive in the market. We want to make sure, first and foremost, we take care of our customers. So we're very open, we're upfront, we explain everything so the customer knows exactly what we're doing and they have they're informed. That's the most important part, and they see exactly what they're getting for it.
What would be some warning signs that maybe don't look real obvious that, hey, maybe you need to get things looked before there's a leak or anything like that?
When you flush a toilet and it takes a while to go down, or it also takes a while to fill up, that's a very good notification of something's going on.
Okay.
It should just flush. And yep, less pressure. Also, you might see a small leak, like a small puddle around the base of a toilet. That's always an issue. And then lastly, if you see a drip from a sink or a faucet or your shower, also something's going on. That's your water line and that's your sewer. So both of those are very good indication that something is wrong further down the line.
You don't want to get those two crossed. No, I'm kidding. Be funny.
I hope not.
So tell us, okay, well, you've been extraordinarily helpful. I think this has been great. So I appreciate you joining us. Tell me a funny story. What's your craziest, most expensive or most memorable plumbing issue story? Do you have one for us?
One funny one is one of our technicians went out about a month ago and was clearing the bathroom line. So he pulled the toilet, stuck the snake down, and found a whole orange sitting down there. No idea why.
Oh, in what the toilet or?
So yeah, we pull what they call pull and recess.
That was a heck of a buffet.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, that's pretty impressive.
Wow. All right. Well, Jason, thank you for taking the time for doing this podcast. I think it was some great advice. I really like that advice about putting in your zip code for your area and finding out what chemicals are, what's in your water and the filtration devices, etc. Thank you again. And anybody has any questions? Jason, in fact, if anybody has any questions, how would they contact you? What's the
They can call me or they can email me. My number is 714-224-4389. And my email is Jason, Jason, at therootercompany.com, spelled just like it's right behind me.
Awesome.
Rootercompany.com.
Awesome. Okay. Jason, thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. And I'll be talking to you soon. Take care, everybody. Have a great time and stay tuned for our next show. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Darryl.